15 after 7 on the 11th of October, tonight, they did what now? Blockbusters. 3 men in a tin can go round the earth, says Apollo 7. Battle of the Titans. But where is Guadalcanal Island? And Royal Rogues in Naziland, the Windsor Whirlwind. And later in the programme, renowned Scots theorist Angus Mackpie claims that cake can hold the secret to world peace, but only on Tuesdays. Those are the headlines. Don't kill the messenger unless he's on a bike.
A news bang, relentlessly puncturing the tires of tripe with razor-sharp logic. 1968.
Breaking news! NASA has launched the Apollo 7 mission, stuffing 3 astronauts into a tin can and flinging them towards the heavens. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off.
For 11 days, these brave souls will orbit Earth, testing critical systems such as the abort button and the oh god, we're all going to die lever. Mission Control reports their first challenge, not vomiting during liftoff, has been met with shall we say mixed success.
Eyewitnesses on the ground described the spectacle as deafening and rapidly receding. One Floridian, Gator McGee, eloquently observed, "It was like a giant metal tampon shooting up God's wazoo."
The astronauts will conduct vital experiments, such as determining the maximum time a man can go without showering before his comrades resort to mutiny. Results may pave the way for future missions, where even more people can be abandoned in space. Stay tuned.
1942.
Shocking news from the Pacific. The U.S. Navy has been accused of cheating during a naval battle near Guadalcanal. Eyewitnesses claim American sailors were spotted using unsportsmanlike tactics, such as night vision and accurate gunfire.
Japanese Admiral Yamamoto, fuming like a malfunctioning torpedo, demanded a rematch, preferably with swords and cannons. "Where's the honor in modern warfare?" he lamented. "It's all technology and no samurai spirit."
The battle, which took place near an island with a name only a dolphin could pronounce, saw American ships obliterating Japanese vessels with ruthless efficiency. One gleeful American sailor was overheard shouting, "They never saw us coming!"
Meanwhile, Japanese supply lines to Guadalcanal have been cut, leaving soldiers stranded with nothing but coconuts and seaweed to eat. One can only assume their morale is sinking faster than a torpedoed destroyer.
1937.
In a display of questionable judgment, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor have been caught red-handed, literally, shaking hands with Hitler himself. Our royal correspondent reports the couple spent a delightful afternoon with the Nazi elite, exchanging pleasantries and fashion tips.
Eyewitnesses claim the Duke was spotted practicing his goose-stepping with Hitler, while the Duchess engaged in a spirited debate with Eva Braun on the merits of cucumber sandwiches versus bratwurst.
One horrified bystander remarked, "It was like a Nazi garden party. I haven't seen so many swastikas since my last trip to Nuremberg."
The visit has left the British monarchy in a right royal tizzy. Sources say the Queen is considering replacing the Duke in the line of succession with a particularly well-behaved corgi.
News bang. Sifting through the snake pit of lies, retrieving the diamond of fact.
And now, for a weather forecast that's more ominous than a flock of crows circling a graveyard, it's our tempestuous meteorologist, Shakanaka Giles.
Good evening. If you have any plans to venture outside tomorrow, cancel them. Stay indoors, board up the windows, and, if you have a cellar, I suggest you take refuge there, because, frankly, it's going to be apocalyptic. The wind will be howling like a chorus of demented banshees, strong enough to rip the roof off your house and send it cartwheeling down the street. Secure all loose objects, including small children and nervous pets. And the rain, torrential, relentless, the sort of rain that makes Noah's flood look like a minor drizzle. If you must go out, wear a diving suit and bring a flotation device. And that's the weather. Stay safe, stay dry, and, if at all possible, stay indoors.
In 1942,
Hold on to your life jackets, because things are getting choppy in the Solomon Islands. It's 1942, and the Yanks and the Japanese are having a right royal rumble off Cape Esperance. It's a nighttime naval showdown, and rumor has it the Americans have a secret weapon: radar. Apparently, it's like having X-ray vision, but for ships. We go live now to our man on the waves, Brian Bastable, who's dodging torpedoes and tinned tuna. Brian, what's the nautical news?
Pamela, it's a scene of utter bedlam out here. The sky is black with the smoke of burning ships. The sea is red with the blood of dying men. This is Cape Esperance, where the forces of freedom and tyranny collide in a maelstrom of destruction. Imagine a disco party in a washing machine with explosions instead of disco balls. The sea's churning with warships, and the night is alive with the flash of gunfire and the screams of the wounded. Those Yankee lads are using their fancy radar to give those Japanese chaps a right proper naval hiding. Like a blind man groping in the dark, the Japanese fleet blunders into the trap, and the Americans, guided by their invisible eye, strike with deadly precision. I'm standing on the bridge of the USS Boise, Pamela, and it's shaking like a jelly on a trampoline. The ship shudders as enemy shells slam into her hull, but she fights on, her guns blazing defiance. Admiral Norman Scott stands beside me, his face set in grim determination. He knows what's at stake. If the Japanese break through, they could rain destruction on Henderson Field, the lifeline of the Allied forces on Guadalcanal. Hold on, Pamela, things are getting spicy. The Furutaka's gone down like a lead balloon, shattered by a volley of 8-inch shells, and the Fubuki's been torn to pieces by a torpedo from the USS Duncan. It's not a pretty sight, Pamela, not a pretty sight at all. Those Japanese sailors are swimming with the sharks now, and it's every man for himself in these blood-stained waters. But the Americans are not unscathed. The USS Laffey's decks are awash with blood and fire, men screaming as they burn, their flesh melting like wax in the heat of the flames. Through the chaos, I see a Japanese sailor clinging to a piece of wreckage, his face a mask of agony. Our eyes meet for a brief moment, and I see the terror and despair in his gaze. Then a shark rises from the depths and drags him down, his screams echoing across the water. In moments like these, I can't help but think of the great war poet Wilfred Owen. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. The monstrous anger of the guns is all around me, and yet, even in this horror, there is a strange, terrible beauty. The flashes of the guns light up the night sky like fireworks, the tracers arcing through the air like shooting stars. This is a turning point, Pamela, a right royal kick in the rising sun. The Americans have proven they can fight at night, and as the last Japanese ship slips beneath the waves, a cheer goes up from the fleet. But the cost has been high. The sea is littered with the bodies of the dead, American and Japanese alike. As the sun rises over the battlefield, the true horror of war is revealed in all its grisly detail. This is Brian Bastable Newsbang, signing off from a sea that's running redder than a Borscht factory explosion. Back to you, Pamela, before I get a torpedo up the backside.
1987.
500,000 marchers descended upon Washington today, demanding equal rights for lesbians and gays. The streets of the capital were awash with rainbow flags and righteous indignation as protesters voiced their displeasure at a recent Supreme Court decision. Demands range from AIDS funding to anti-discrimination laws, all delivered with a fervour that would make even the most stoic politician blush. For more on this colourful chapter in American history, we go to our correspondent Melody Wintergreen in Washington.
Washington, D.C., 1987. Melody Wintergreen here, at the epicenter of a political earthquake that's shaking the very foundations of America. 500,000 people have descended on the National Mall, and honey, they're not here for a picnic. This is the Great March, a rainbow wave of activism crashing against the shores of indifference. The air crackles with anger, pride, and the desperate need for change. From the Lincoln Memorial, the roar of the crowd echoes across the reflecting pool. It's a symphony of defiance, a chorus of demands that can no longer be ignored. Donna Doubtfire, a true warrior queen of the movement, takes the stage, denouncing the geographic gynofascism that's kept the LGBTQ community in the shadows. "We will not be silenced," she cries. "Our bodies, our minds, our futures, they are ours." The crowd roars its approval, a sea of rainbow flags waving in the autumn breeze. This march is a spectacle of defiance, creative protests, poignant signs, and a whole lot of glitter. The message is clear. The LGBTQ community is here. They're queer and they're not going anywhere. They're demanding equal rights, an end to discrimination, and funding for the AIDS crisis that's ravaging their community. As the sun sets on the nation's capital, the energy is electric. This isn't just a march, it's a watershed moment. The LGBTQ community has found its voice, and honey, it's a voice that's going to shake the halls of power. Melody Wintergreen, News Bang, from the Great March, where history is being made and America is getting a fabulous makeover.
Into a news bang, lifting the veil of delusion with an iron hand and a salacious smile. 1968.
And now for a science report more mind-boggling than a black hole filled with jelly babies, it's Calamity Prendeville.
Hello viewers, tonight on Science Watch we're rewriting the history books. Hold on to your hats because I'm about to reveal a shocking truth. Britain, yes Britain, was the secret powerhouse behind the Apollo space program.
On this day in 1968, the Americans launched Apollo 7, a technological marvel, they said. But what they failed to mention is that this so-called triumph of American ingenuity was actually fueled by, Yorkshire tea. That's right, viewers. That mighty Saturn V rocket, the one that blasted those astronauts towards the moon, was powered by a brew so strong it could lift a double-decker bus.
And the onboard computer, forget NASA's whiz-bang technology. It was a humble ZX Spectrum, cobbled together by a chap in his garden shed. A proper British brain box he was, with a soldering iron and a love for computer games. And to keep those astronauts happy on their lunar jaunt, what better than a piping hot cuppa? Enter the cosmic kettle.
The invention of Rodney Trotter, a Peckham lad with a knack for turning junk into genius. This ingenious device defied gravity and provided the astronauts with a proper brew, even in zero-G.
So there you have it, viewers, the untold story of the space race, tea, ingenuity and a ZX Spectrum, the true heroes of Apollo. This is Calamity Prendeville, signing off. And remember, the next time you're enjoying a cuppa, think of those brave astronauts sipping their tea amongst the stars, thanks to British brilliance.
News bang. Truth is stranger than fiction, but not as strange as these headlines.
And now, for a look at this day in royal history, we turn to our royal correspondent, Sandy O'Shaughnessy. Sandy's been delving into the archives and has uncovered a rather controversial royal visit from 1937. Sandy, what have you found for us?
Nice and Well, hello there, and a very good evening to you all. This is Sandy O'Shaughnessy, coming to you live from the cozy confines of our little radio nook. Martin Bangs just handed over the reins, and I must say his hair was looking particularly dashing tonight. Must be using that new pomade I recommended. Now gather round, my dear listeners, for we're about to embark on a right royal romp through history. It's the 11th of October 2024, and we're taking a jolly jaunt back to 1937. Oh, what a year that was. The year my Aunt Petunia discovered she was allergic to petunias. Irony, thy name is Petunia. But I digress. Let's talk about a different kind of flower. The English rose, or in this case, the thorny stem of the Windsor family tree. Picture this: Edward, Duke of Windsor, and his beloved Wallis, Duchess of Windsor, arriving at Berlin Friedrichstraße station. Now, you might think they were there for the bratwurst and beer, but no, they were embarking on a tour of Nazi Germany. Can you imagine? There they were, greeted with Nazi salutes instead of a nice cup of tea and a digestive biscuit. It's like showing up at your neighbor's house for a friendly game of bridge and finding yourself in the middle of a Viking reenactment society meeting. Bit of a shock to the system, I'd say. And speaking of shocks, I received a letter from Mildred in Galway. She writes, "Dear Sandy, I've trained my cat to do the Nazi salute. Should I be worried?" Well, Mildred, I'd be more concerned about where your cat's getting its history lessons from. Perhaps it's time for a stern talk about feline fascism? But back to our royal couple. There they were, dining with high-ranking members of the state apparatus. Now, I'm not one to judge a man's dinner companions, but when your guest list reads like a who's who of the Third Reich, you might want to reconsider your social circle. It's like inviting the neighborhood watch to a burglars' convention, bound to raise a few eyebrows. You know, it reminds me of the time I accidentally attended a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. There I was, thinking I was going to a pancake appreciation club, and suddenly I'm surrounded by people insisting the world is flatter than my attempts at stand-up comedy. But that's a story for another day. Now, I can't help but wonder what they talked about over dinner. Pass the schnitzel, Adolf? And while you're at it, any tips on invading Poland? It's all a bit of a pickle, isn't it? Like trying to explain cricket to a goldfish. Confusing, potentially dangerous, and likely to end in tears. But let's not be too hard on old Edward and Wallis. After all, we've all made questionable choices in our lives. Why, just last week I tried to make haggis in a slow cooker. The results were, well, let's just say even the local stray cats turned their noses up at it.
All over the country for everyone.
Inner news bang, trampling the dandelions of delusion with a thundering truth step.
And finally, let's rip into tomorrow's rags. Typhoon tips the Pacific bellows. The Times, with a map the size of a whale. The Telegraph shouts, Thatcher's cabinet decimated by bomb, and that's on every page. And the Mail reveals, Knights win Samagitia in Lithuanian deal. And there's a tin suit to prove it. Police chief arrests widow Twanky, screams the Express. Whatever that means. And finally, due to a print snafu, today's Mirror is only visible to the blind. That's all from me. Nighty-night.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.